The morning it all hit him wasn't dramatic. No alarms, no sirens, no sudden realization flashing in neon lights. Just Evan sitting on the edge of his bed, breathing too hard, sweat already forming at the back of his neck. He was trying to tie his sneakers, the kind he hadn't worn in months, and even that simple motion left him gasping. He looked down at himself. His stomach pressed against his jeans in a way it hadn't before. His arms felt heavy, almost foreign, like they belonged to someone else. There was a quiet shame there, the kind you feel when you know the truth but don't want anyone else to see it. "Man, this isn't right," he muttered under his breath. The words felt small, almost silly, but they carried a weight he couldn't shake. He stayed there for a while, just sitting, listening to his own uneven breaths, watching the sunlight fall across the floor. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. That morning, tying his shoes became more than a chore. It became the mirror he couldn't avoid. And for the first time in a long while, Evan knew things had to change. Before that morning, Evan's life had a rhythm. Not a good one, not really. Just a rhythm. Wake up late. Skip breakfast or grab a donut on the way to work. Sit behind a desk for 8, sometimes 10 hours. Stare at the screen. Scroll through social media. Half-heartedly nod at coworkers. Then drive home, eat whatever was easiest, usually takeout or frozen meals, and sink into the couch until it was time to sleep again. He lived alone, which made things easy in some ways and harder in others. No one to notice the extra pounds creeping on his frame. No one to comment when he skipped the gym or the walk or the fruit salad he'd promised himself last week. Silence can be comforting, but it can also be sneaky. Over time, silence let him slip. Food was both a comfort and a trap. A pizza box became a friend after a long day. Ice cream in the freezer whispered, "It's okay, just one more scoop." And somehow he'd listen every time. Evan wasn't lazy, not really. He just didn't know how to fight the tiny habits that built themselves quietly over years. His mornings were slow and hesitant. Coffee first, always coffee, then a quick glance in the mirror. He didn't hate what he saw, but he didn't love it either. More like resignation. His reflection was a reminder of the weight of inertia and the quiet embarrassment that followed him around at work, at the grocery store, even at the gas station when he had to bend to pump fuel. Small, everyday things felt heavier than they should. Evan's friends had tried. They'd invite him for basketball or hiking, or just to hit the gym together. "Come on, man, you're not that out of shape." And he'd smile, nod, and say, "Yeah, maybe next week." But next week never came. Excuses built walls thicker than his old college textbooks. He wasn't lonely exactly. He had people around, coworkers, neighbors, the occasional cousin stopping by. But even in a room full of familiar faces, he felt disconnected from his own body, like he was watching someone else live through his day-to-day, a shadow of what he used to be or what he thought he could be. Sleep was uneven. He'd lie in bed scrolling through his phone, feeling restless, tired, and guilty all at once. His body ached in places he hadn't realized could ache so early. Knees, lower back, shoulders. Small reminders that he wasn't treating himself with care. And the worst part? He knew it. Every ache, every tight pant, every skipped stare or huff of breath carried the quiet judgment of a man who had watched himself drift away. He wasn't looking for some dramatic life overhaul. He wasn't thinking, "I need to run a marathon or I have to drop 50 pounds in 3 months." No, he just wanted air. Space to feel normal again without the heaviness pressing down. But he didn't know how to start. And that's why mornings like that one, the shoelace morning, hit him so hard. It was the simplest motion, the smallest task, and yet it made him pause, make him reconsider, make him wonder, how did I let it get this far? That quiet reflection, the embarrassment, the fatigue, the longing, was the first crack in the wall he had built around himself. A crack big enough for change to sneak through, even if he didn't realize it yet. Evan wasn't a hero, not yet. He was just a man noticing, finally, that he'd been surviving instead of living. And in that quiet realization, there was a strange kind of hope, subtle and fragile, like the first light of dawn through a half-closed window. The first morning Evan decided to actually move was quiet too, but in a different way. He laced up those sneakers again, the same ones that had left him gasping a week ago, and stepped outside. The air was crisp, maybe a little too chilly for November, but it didn't matter. He just wanted to see if he could walk half a mile without huffing. The first few steps felt foreign. His legs complained. His chest felt tight, and every passing neighbor jogging by seemed like a reminder of how far behind he was. "Man, this sucks," he muttered to himself, leaning on the railing of his porch. But he kept walking anyway, one foot in front of the other, slow, steady. The soreness hit the next day like a quiet punch. Not dramatic, not painful enough to cry out, just enough to remind him he wasn't used to this. Every step, every bend, every reach for the doorknob felt heavier. His body was waking up from a long sleep, and it wasn't gentle about it. He cursed himself a little, rolled his shoulders, wondered if it was really worth it. At work, he noticed the subtle changes in how he felt or didn't feel. A tiny spike of energy climbing the stairs. A less groggy morning, but he also noticed the craving for old habits. The leftover pizza in the break room. The urge to skip the walk after dinner. He fought it, sometimes, but sometimes he didn't. He learned quickly that change wasn't linear. Maybe tomorrow, he found himself thinking more than once. Or, what's the point? It's too late anyway. Old self-doubt had a way of creeping in, quiet and persistent. It whispered in the middle of a plank, in the slow burn of a jog, in the tired ache after a few push-ups. Evan had to talk back to it in his own voice. Nah, you're gonna do this. One step at a time. His friends noticed too. One of them called him on a Saturday. Hey man, you coming to the game? Evan shook his head. Nah, gotta walk first. Gotta, get my shit together. The friend laughed, light, teasing. Damn man, okay. Don't die on me out there. But Evan just smiled, hung up, and tied his shoes tighter. Progress was fragile, sometimes barely visible. Half a mile became a mile, then a mile and a half. He tracked it obsessively at first, as if seeing the numbers would keep him honest. But some days, he fell short. Some mornings, he hit snooze 3 times. Some nights, he ate more than he should have, drank more beer than he wanted, and promised himself he'd make up for it tomorrow. And often, tomorrow was another struggle. Even his mind wasn't safe. He replayed old failures, old excuses, old shame. You can't do this, it whispered. But slowly, through sheer stubbornness, he learned to answer back. Maybe I can't do it perfectly, but I can do something. Anything. And so he did. He walked. He stretched. He pushed. He stumbled. He rested. Repeat. Some mornings were lonely. Really lonely. Walking past houses with families eating breakfast together, or joggers laughing in pairs, Evan felt a twinge of envy, a reminder of what he'd ignored. But he also felt a quiet pride, tiny and almost imperceptible. He was showing up, even when it sucked, even when the pain whispered, even when the doubt nagged. And the small victories began to matter. A stair climbed without wheezing. A mile finished without stopping. A day without junk food. A week of consistency. They weren't headlines. They weren't Instagram moments. They were just little proofs that he could do it. That he could fight back against the inertia he'd lived with for years. Change was messy. It was sore muscles, skipped steps, temptation, guilt, and occasional despair. But it was also the quiet hum of possibility. The first crack in the wall, widening slowly, letting light through. Evan learned to sit with the discomfort, to greet it as part of the process, not the enemy. And each day, he felt a little stronger, not just in his body, but in that soft, stubborn corner of himself that refused to quit. It wasn't a moment of triumph, not a finish line or a medal. It was a Tuesday morning, gray and quiet, the kind of day that made the air feel heavier than usual. Evan had signed up for a local 5K, not because he thought he'd win, not even because he cared about the time. He signed up because he wanted to prove something to himself, something small, something private, that he could follow through. The morning of the run, he stood at the starting line, shoes lace tight, lungs warm from a short jog. His stomach fluttered, not nerves exactly, more like the weight of all the months, all the missed mornings, all the excuses, pressing quietly against him. The whistle blew, and he started. The first mile was steady, easy, comfortable enough that he thought, maybe this won't suck as bad as I imagined. But the second mile hit like a wall. His lungs burned, his legs felt heavy, his knees ached, and his body screamed, stop, you're done. He slowed to a walk, shoulders sagging, forehead damp. He could hear the other runners pass, one by one, feet pounding, casual chatter, the rhythm of their motion smooth. And for a moment, he considered quitting, just stepping off the track, maybe grabbing a coffee instead, calling it a good try. The old Evan, the one who had lived in comfort and excuses for years, smiled quietly in the back of his mind. T? Told ya, you're not built for this. But then a voice popped up, soft, from somewhere deep inside. You've come this far. Don't quit now. Just keep moving. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a lightning bolt of motivation. Just a whisper, a tiny insistence that he could do the next step, and the step after that. So he ran again, slowly, carefully, one step at a time. Each footfall was deliberate, each breath measured. Sweat dripped into his eyes, his shirt clung to his back, and yet he ran. And halfway through the third mile, something shifted. The pain didn't go away. The fatigue didn't vanish. But his mind stopped arguing. His body, exhausted and sore, kept moving anyway. And in that quiet persistence, a strange thing happened. He realized he wasn't just running against the clock or the route. He was running against every excuse he had ever made, every day he had let pass untouched, every maybe tomorrow that had kept him in place. When he finally crossed the finish line, he didn't feel triumphant. He didn't feel like he had conquered the world. He just felt awake, alive in a way he hadn't remembered. Knees aching, chest heaving, muscles screaming in protest. Yet something in him had shifted. The old weight, the old guilt, the old fear, they hadn't disappeared, but they'd softened. There was room now for something else. Later, sitting on the curb with a bottle of water, Evan let himself breathe. He thought about the mornings he had skipped, the pizzas he had eaten alone, the small betrayals to his own body. And he realized something. This, showing up, moving, even when it hurt, was the turning point. Not the run itself, not the medal, or even finishing, but proving to himself that he could keep going. It was quiet. It was slow. It wasn't cinematic, but it was enough. Enough to make him believe that maybe, just maybe, the man he used to be, or the man he wanted to be, wasn't gone forever. He just had to keep putting one foot in front of the other. After that 5K, mornings felt different. Not magical, not perfect, but somehow quieter, more intentional. Evan woke up, laced his shoes, and walked or ran without the same dread. The soreness was still there. The fatigue didn't magically disappear, but it no longer dictated his choices. He had started listening to his body, noticing what it needed instead of punishing it for what it wasn't. Breakfast became intentional. Not a diet, not a punishment, just choices that felt good in the moment. Eggs, fruit, oats, water. Coffee still happened, but now it was paired with movement instead of filling a void. Small routines emerged, a stretch here, a short jog there, a walk after dinner. He realized health wasn't one giant leap. It was all the little steps he had refused to take before. Even his mindset shifted. Evan forgave himself for past mistakes. The missed workouts, the late night snacks, the months of doing nothing, they were gone. He didn't need to erase them. He just needed to keep moving forward, steady and honest. And that made all the difference. Friends noticed too. "You look different, man," someone said at work. Evan laughed softly, shrugging. "Just showing up more, I guess." No one needed to know it was deeper than weight or appearance. It was pride in showing up for himself. Movement became meditation. The hum of his sneakers on pavement, the taste of cold water after a run, the quiet rhythm of breath, they became his anchors. Not performance, not competition, just presence. And in that presence, Evan discovered something he had forgotten. Health could feel like home, calm, steady, quietly proud. He didn't chase perfection. He chased consistency, and that, he realized, was enough. Now, years later, Evan doesn't chase fitness like he once thought he would. He wakes up, laces his shoes, stretches a little, walks, jogs, sometimes slow, sometimes faster, but always with attention. He drinks water, eats well, and pauses to notice the simple things. Sunlight spilling through the window, the sound of leaves crunching underfoot, the quiet rhythm of his own heartbeat. He still has tough mornings, days when the couch seems louder than the pavement, when the pizza box whispers louder than reason. But he meets those moments differently now, with patience, with self-forgiveness, with a soft insistence. Keep moving just a little. Health, Evan realizes, isn't a number on a scale or a time on a clock. It's a relationship with himself. It's breathing without shame. It's listening to his body. It's showing up, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when no one is watching. And in that quiet showing up, Evan finally feels at home in his own skin. Not perfect, not flashy, just steady, calm, and alive. He doesn't chase fitness anymore. He walks, breathes, stretches, and finally, he listens.